behind you, the first one, John. Wind's picking up.
Is a small, picturesque town situated 1 hour's drive south of Sydney on the beautiful Illawarra coast. Rising 200 metres above scenic Stanmore Park Beach is Bald Hill, known around the world as the Mecca of Australian freestyle hang gliding. It was from Bald Hill that Lawrence Hargraves first experimented with box kites, and it seems appropriate that now, some 100 years later, in the shadow of the Lawrence Hargraves Monument, it's the scene for another piece of aviation history, the IMB World Masters of Freestyle Hang Gliding. As part of the safety requirements in a competition such as this, both judges and pilots are enforced to carry out a pre-flight check of all equipment. Stanmore Park is a cliquey community, one big family of hang gliding addicts, and it's here that the showy, more artistic form of hang gliding was born, freestyle. Organisers set aside 10 days for this competition, expecting to get the conditions right sometime during that period. On the 10th day, pilots woke up to a perfect day, cloudy at times, but perfect flying conditions. The southerly they've been waiting for has finally arrived. In competitive freestyle events, judges are looking at the number of manoeuvres, their style, accuracy, and landing. A bullseye landing, if you can swing it. The Masters is held every 2 years, and the top 4 place-getters from January 1986, Newcastle's Rick Duncan, Stanmore Park's Danny Scott, Steve Moyes from Sydney, and Bruce Daniel, also Stanmore Park, will take the first 4 seeding positions for the event, which runs from the 10th through to the 20th of January. is a branch of hang gliding which has come a long way, very quickly, and each year pilots push back the frontiers a little further with radical and dangerous routines. It was in the early 70s the sport really took off under Bill Moyes. Freestyle hang gliding is a spectator sport where 90% of the action takes place close to the hill, as opposed to over land comps where all there is to see are the takeoffs. On a good day when the sun and wind are right, it's not unusual to find the whole family enjoying the pleasant surroundings and the spectacular action that's part of Bald Hill. Rick Duncan has been at the forefront of hang gliding for the last decade. Here we see a demonstration of the skill and grace that won him the 1986 freestyle title. Champion Steve Moyes has not seen an Aussie winter in the last 14 years, spending the flying season in Europe and then America before returning down under for the summer at Stanwell. Steve told us before the comp why he thought Australians were always in the top three.
Yeah, Australian pilots get a lot of airtime because the weather's so good in Australia, and the flying side here at Stanwell Park is the best in the world for top landings and getting a lot of competitive people flying at the same sites, pushing each other.
What do you think of freestyle as a sport?
The best spectator sport you can have because it gives you such good feeling of movement and artistic thing. Whereas cross-country flying, you just a speck in the distance, so it's no spectator value at all.
Bald Hill is rated by competitors and spectators as one of the best hang gliding sites in the world and the appropriate home for the World Freestyle Masters. During the summer of 79-80 that Tim Travers started to experiment with the freestyle art form and became one of the instigators of freestyle flight, helping to add yet another facet to the sport of hang gliding. Over this period, the young Australian champion did things in a hang glider which to this day have never been duplicated. Sit back and enjoy. Skill and courage needed to perform some of these radical manoeuvres is acquired only by the chosen few and is something to be wondered at. A moment's lapse of concentration could prove disastrous. Some landing places Tim only shared with the birds. This is one of them. Duffy has been hang gliding for just 4 years, and this will be his first aerobatics competition, a big task against some of the world's top hang glider pilots. Duffy's entry into the Masters was largely a coincidence. He knew little of the event until he arrived on the East Coast for a holiday with friends, but after some persuasion from officials, including organiser John Kobe, Duffy agreed to give it a go.
I'm on holiday at the moment, 5 weeks, and I'd planned to come here and then see my friends in Gosford, and then home.
He took up hang gliding 4 years ago after seeing the sport on television and became hooked, but had few opportunities in his hometown, Perth. Duffy says he's had little experience in top-class competition or from top sites, such as Stanmore Park.
I really don't have much of an idea at the moment because I haven't seen very many people fly aerobatics. I'm hoping to do as best I can.
Is one of the most difficult and dangerous manoeuvres being performed by these gladiators of the sky. Here we see it being performed at its best.
I'm hoping to do as best I can, as best I can, as best I can.
Gilmore won the aerobatic championship at Mount Buffalo in 1987, but was unable to repeat his prize-winning performance in the freestyle. Top landing in this competition is critical. The landings are scored out of 10, and points are deducted for the distance away from the bullseye at a rate of 1 point per metre, plus the time taken after 3 minutes to land. 30 seconds grace is given, then half a point is lost for every 10 seconds in overtime. John Kobe, competition organiser.
They're critical. In fact, in past competitions, the airwork, the pilots were fairly close, virtually nearly the same, and it was the landings that differentiated between the winners and the losers.
Everyone, of course, enjoys landing and talking about their flights after, but it's totally independent feeling.
Danny Scott, winner of the first Freestyle Hanggliding second.
Danny Scott started flying at the age of 13 and has lived at Stanmore Park for the last 14 years. He tells us that to him, Bald Hill is just like a grid map. When he performs a manoeuvre close to the hill, he has the ability to predict exactly where he will exit. freestyle competition, a competitor mustn't concentrate on the manoeuvres alone, which make up 50% of the score, but on style, accuracy and landings. The manoeuvres are judged on the degree of difficulty and the number of manoeuvres managed in the 3 minutes. Extra points are scored for combinations of manoeuvres. The accuracy is scored with each pilot beginning with 10, then losing points for any error in flight. Style is judged on the same basis, with pilots losing points for any loss of flow and harmony. The heat format is one-on-one, sudden elimination. A freestyle competition is judged on a similar basis to a gymnastics or a diver's performance.
The boys were pulling out all the stops in the creativity department to try and get as many points as possible. They were using everything from smoke flares, one-arm wing-overs, A-frame takeoffs, right down to a laugh-getting leg kick to try and inject a bit of personality into the flight. Colour coordination of the glider and associated equipment catches the eye and adds to the overall presentation.
The sport's not without its dangers and accidents. More on this later. Aussie pilots seem a very laid-back bunch when on terra firma, but when handling their kites through difficult manoeuvres, they're anything but laid back. The adrenaline's really pumping. Russell Duncan came to the freestyle with the reputation as the best exponent of a full loop in Australia. During his warm-up flight before the competition, Russell entered a loop only 30 metres from the hill and stalled fully inverted. He tumbled his glider at least 10 times, falling 100 metres before crashing into the side of the hill. His only injury? A broken nose. It took real courage for Russell to don the harness and fly again.
Hey, I'll come to your party, buddy.
Bruce Daniel's also one of the pioneers of freestyle flight. He's competed in all previous freestyle events and has been involved in the development of the freestyle competition format. Bruce designs and builds his own gliders, especially for freestyle. And here we see him flying his latest design, the Rage. Unlike their cross-country long-distance counterparts, these pilots strut their stuff in a confined area before the eyes of the 5 judges. The aim? To impress with the precision and difficulty of their manoeuvres. hang glider pilot in the world knows of Steve Moyes, only a few are aware of his freestyling abilities. As Steve points out, this just has to be a great spectator sport. Has come a long way, safety-wise, and the growth of freestyle, with its more adventurous moves in the sky, has prompted the design of more manoeuvrable and safer rigs. At the moment, the full loop is the highest scoring and most dangerous manoeuvre that's gradually being tried and conquered. Not everyone is keen on it, though.
I design hang gliders and build them for a living, and they're not made for doing loops. Then getting faster and faster, it's possible to really beef one up and get it so it's better than the normal hang glider for doing loops, but they're still, once they start tumbling, they'll never stop. So the first time you blow them in a loop, you're in serious trouble.
What gives you more pleasure, flying or building?
Flying, of course, yeah. I love flying. I've got probably 3,000 hours now and fly summer here, and then I go to the States and Europe and fly the summer there.
As Steve makes his final approach, we can see from the wind lines on the water that conditions have changed for the third time today. The wind is now pumping in at about 25 knots and switched around to the southeasterly direction. These factors alone guarantee a really close finish to this freestyle competition. Although they're great friends on the ground, Rick's competitive nature became evident as we caught him checking out Steve's landing, making sure that there were no infringements to the rules. Judge Forrest Park was also on the ball and almost loses his head. One man accustomed to the TV limelight is former rugby league star Tony Armstrong. Playing for Cronulla in '84, he was the league's top point scorer. But now hang gliding is his game. Forced off the football field because of injury, freestyle is now his favourite art form.
Freestyle to me is an expression of yourself. It can be an expression of your mood. If you're feeling aggressive and angry, it can reflect your flying. Whereas if you're in a very quiet mood, you can just float around the air.
When he steps into the harness for competition, he has to harness his moods for victory. And the aggression he had back on the football field had its uses in the early days of flying.
Basically, when I was learning, I had to use a lot of aggression on the sandhills to get around, because sometimes when you're handling a glider, they're not the easiest thing to handle. So, yeah, in that area, it helped.
How hard was it going from a sport that's full on to something that's fairly laid back?
It's not much different. They're totally different sports. To me, that can be an expression of your own personality if you can handle both things at the one time. first, John. Next time I won't stop till he comes flying. It doesn't make any difference to me, but it's still the same competition, so that's all right. Fair enough, they've done 12 up there, that's fine, but change it. I see what John's getting at, mate.
Rick and Steve check each other out, wondering who will be the best on the day. Many pilots felt that the Stanmore Park locals flew with a distinct advantage in this competition. This didn't seem to worry Rick Duncan, who, hailing from Newcastle, successfully defended his world freestyle title with his innovative and radical performance. Rick's the best of a small group of freestylers who will without doubt make a mark in the future of this exciting and highly skilled form of sport. Despite the local advantage, the Stanmore Park pilot is yet to win the world freestyle crown. Came down to a best-of-3 heat fly-off between Australian champion Rick Duncan and local Bruce Daniel in fading light and perfect winds. It was Duncan who prevailed, but the final went all the way to the third heat and gave us some tremendous flying. Was forced to make several attempts at landing in this, his final flight of the competition. Running now would have cost Rick the title. competition receives $3,000 and the Dan Racanelli Trophy. The trophy was first introduced in 1986 in memory of the American flyer, Dan Racanelli, who was sadly killed in Australia while trying to save a fellow flyer who'd become tangled in high-tension power lines. The winner of the freestyle has the honour of keeping the trophy for 2 years. World Freestyle Hanggliding Champion for the Australian Bicentennial year and for the second time in as many comps, Rick Duncan.
Freestyle gives you that third dimension where you have to really control it.
And it was the landings that differentiated between the winners and the losers.
It's totally independent feeling.
I'm hoping to do as best I can.
The time, and within 3 months I was teaching hang gliding.
I get a lot of air time because the weather's so good in Australia.
It's about a 10 to 15 mile an hour easterly wind.
Spectators around, the people just like to show off in front of a crowd.
So we're going to concentrate on bringing the sport to the people via television.
Basically, when I was learning, I had to use a lot of aggression on the sandhills to get
It's just
feet off the ground and away you go.
and build them for a living, and they're not made for doing loops. Faster, it's possible to really beef one up and get it so it's better. So the first time you blow them in a loop, then you're in serious trouble.